When I first took the night job at the gas station, I thought it would be easy money. Sit behind the counter, ring up a few customers, maybe stock some shelves. But then my boss handed me a laminated sheet of rules. He slid it across the counter like it weighed more than it should. His eyes didn't meet mine when he said, "Follow every rule exactly. Midnight is when it starts. Don't think you know better." The rules weren't normal. They weren't about cleaning or safety. They were about things you weren't supposed to see and people you weren't supposed to talk to. Some of them didn't make any sense at all. I laughed nervously and asked if it was some kind of prank. My boss just said, "You'll find out." Then he walked out, leaving me alone in the flickering fluorescent light of the store. The clock on the wall ticked toward midnight. The first rule glared at me from the paper. Do not let the man in the brown coat inside. At 11:57, the station was dead quiet. Just me, the hum of the refrigerator, and the buzzing lights overhead. I kept glancing at the glass doors, half expecting something. When the clock hit 12:01, the bell above the door jingled. A man in a long brown coat stood outside, perfectly still. His head was bowed, and his hands were hidden in his pockets. He didn't move, didn't knock, didn't try the handle, just stood there like a statue. My stomach twisted. The rule came back to me in bold letters. Do not let the man in the brown coat inside. I froze, afraid that if I moved, he'd notice. Then slowly he raised his head. His eyes weren't right, too dark, too wide, like they didn't belong to a human face. The lights above him flickered and buzzed, casting long, broken shadows. And then he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was like his mouth stretched too far. I ducked behind the counter, heart hammering. From there, I heard the sound of him tapping, just one finger, against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. The rules didn't say what to do if he tapped. They only said not to let him in. So I stayed low, gripping the counter, praying he'd go away. The tapping stopped. I risked a glance. The door was empty. The man in the coat was gone. But when I turned back toward the counter, something was waiting. A receipt had printed out on its own. The paper curled, and words scrawled across it in ink I didn't recognize. Good job. Rule 1 followed. My hands trembled as I tore the receipt free. Who wrote that? The register wasn't connected to anything except the drawer. It couldn't type words on its own. Another glance at the rules showed the second one. If a customer enters and does not cast a shadow, ring up their purchase, but do not look at their face. I laughed nervously, but it came out shaky. Then, right on cue, the bell above the door jingled again. A woman walked in. She moved slowly down the aisle, each step deliberate, heels clicking against the tile. I tried to look casual, but my eyes dropped to the floor. No shadow. None at all. The aisles glowed with white fluorescent light, but she didn't cast even a faint outline. She placed a single bottle of water on the counter. My throat dried instantly. I rang it up, forced my gaze to stay on the scanner, never daring to look up. Her hands were pale and cold when she slid the money across the counter. I didn't breathe until she took her water and walked back toward the door. The bell jingled once, but when I looked, the door never opened. She was simply gone. No sound, no trace, nothing. Another receipt printed itself. Rule 2 followed. The register dinged, like it was proud of me. I didn't feel proud. I felt trapped. The rules weren't warnings, they were tests. And I had no idea what happened if I failed. Rule 3 was next. If the phone rings after 1 a.m., do not answer on the first call. Only answer if it rings again. That seemed simple enough, but my nerves were shredded. I kept staring at the phone on the wall, waiting. At exactly 1:02 it rang. Loud, shrill, echoing off the tiles. I gritted my teeth and ignored it. It rang 6 times before stopping. My relief was short-lived. At 1:03 it rang again. I picked it up, hand shaking. A voice hissed through the static, slow and deliberate. You're being watched. Keep playing along. Then silence. My skin crawled. I slammed the receiver down and stared at the rules again. Whoever made them knew exactly what would happen. The 4th rule read, never look at the security monitors after 2 a.m. If you do, you won't like what looks back. I thought about covering the screens, but that felt wrong, like I was inviting something worse. Instead, I turned my chair around, back to the monitors, forcing myself not to peek. That was harder than I expected. At 2:01, the static started. The crackle of white noise filled the air, seeping from the screens. The urge to turn around was overwhelming, like something was whispering in the static, begging me to look. I held my ground. My hands dug into the counter, knuckles white, sweat dripping down my neck. The static grew louder, until it sounded like voices layered over each other, hundreds speaking at once. And then I felt it, breath on the back of my neck. Warm. Close. Something was standing directly behind me. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. If the rules were right, turning around would mean seeing what was on the monitors. I shut my eyes and whispered to myself until the static finally stopped. When the static died, so did the lights. The entire gas station went black, leaving me in suffocating silence. I fumbled for the flashlight taped beneath the counter, but before I could switch it on, the hum of the refrigerators roared back. The lights flickered one by one. The place looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. I checked the clock. 2:30 a.m. The rules didn't say anything about power cuts, which scared me more than if they had. My only guide was the paper in my pocket, and now it felt like I was drifting outside of its protection. I tried steadying my breathing when a new sound echoed from the back storage room. Metal scraping against concrete, long and slow, like something was being dragged. My stomach twisted. I wasn't supposed to leave the counter, but what if someone had broken in? Rule 5 came to mind, one I had skimmed earlier. Do not enter the stockroom between 2:30 and 3 o'clock. If you hear noises inside, ignore them. My mouth went dry. The scraping was steady now, pulling closer, as if the shelves themselves were being shifted across the floor. I gripped the counter, whispering, "Ignore it. Just ignore it." But the sound changed. The dragging stopped, replaced by a low, wet-breathing animal-like, right behind the stockroom door. Then a voice. A child's voice. "Please help me." My chest tightened. The rules echoed louder in my head. Do not enter. Do not engage. In the same jagged script as before, words etched themselves across the paper. Good restraint. Do not trust the voices. My blood ran cold. Whoever was behind this knew exactly what I had just resisted. When I looked up from the note, the front door was open. The bell hadn't jingled. A gust of cold air swept through the aisles, rattling candy wrappers and soda bottles. My heart lurched as I realized something had slipped inside while I was focused on the stockroom. In the same jagged script as before, words etched themselves across the paper. Good restraint. Do not trust the voices. My blood ran cold. Whoever was behind this knew exactly what I had just resisted. When I looked up from the note, the front door was open. The bell hadn't jingled. A gust of cold air swept through the aisles, rattling candy wrappers and soda bottles. My heart lurched as I realized something had slipped inside while I was focused on the stockroom. The fluorescent lights hummed above, but the shadows on the floor didn't match the aisles. They were wrong, longer, too sharp, twisting in directions that didn't make sense. One of them broke away and slithered up the aisle, closer and closer to the counter. I froze, watching that shadow creep across the linoleum like spilled ink. The air grew colder with every inch it gained. I told myself not to move, not to acknowledge it, but my pulse betrayed me, thundering so loud I thought it could hear. The thing stopped just short of the counter. Then impossibly it stood upright. Not a body, not a figure, just blackness folding in on itself. My throat tightened as its head tilted, as though it was studying me. I gripped the flashlight, my only defense, but the rules said nothing about shadows. That was the most terrifying part. I didn't know if shining the light would save me or doom me. Then, like a cruel joke, the receipt printer sputtered again. A single line appeared. Do not shine the light. Stay still. The shadow rippled, twitching as if impatient. So I obeyed. I held my breath, nails digging into my palms, until the shadow finally sank back into the floor and crawled toward the open door. It slipped outside, vanishing into the night. The bell jingled this time. The door closed. The temperature lifted, but I was left drenched in sweat. Whoever, or whatever, was writing these rules had just saved my life again. It was 2:55. 5 minutes until the stockroom silence would be safe again. I stared at the clock, counting every second, when I noticed something odd on the counter. A coin. Small, brass, unfamiliar. It hadn't been there before. Its surface was worn smooth except for one detail, the faint outline of a face. Faceless, yet almost human. I didn't touch it at first. Just seeing it made my skin crawl. But the register dinged softly, like it wanted me to acknowledge it. Against my better judgment, I picked it up. The coin was ice cold, so cold it burned. As soon as it touched my palm, I felt a whisper curl inside my ear. "You've been chosen to play." I dropped it instantly, but when it hit the counter, it didn't bounce. It simply vanished. The moment the coin vanished, the refrigerators hummed louder, their glass doors rattling as if something inside wanted out. My chest tightened. I braced myself for another rule to appear, but the receipt printer stayed silent. I was on my own. Then faintly, I noticed something odd through the glass of the soda cooler. A reflection that didn't belong. My own outline stood there, but in the mirrored glass, my reflection was smiling. I wasn't. The reflection raised its hand, slowly, deliberately, and pressed a coin against the glass. The same brass coin I had just touched. My throat closed. I stepped back, whispering, "No. No, no, no." The reflection tilted its head, smile widening, before pressing the coin harder. A sharp crack splintered the glass, spreading like a spiderweb. My legs screamed to run, but the rules said nothing about fleeing the building. The crack deepened, and suddenly, the receipt printer whirred. The paper shot out violently, letters burned into it. "Do not let it through. Offer something else instead." My mind raced. Offer what? The crack widened, a hiss escaping the cooler like air leaking from a tire. I grabbed the nearest thing on the counter, a pack of gum, and slapped it against the glass. Pathetic. My reflection only laughed silently. Another crack. My hands trembled. I searched desperately until my eyes landed on the small tip jar by the register. Coins, dollar bills, an offering. I shoved it against the glass. The reflection paused, grin faltering. Slowly, it lowered its coin, studying my pitiful offering. The cracks in the glass began to seal. With one final smirk, it faded away. The cooler doors rattled one last time before falling still. My reflection returned to normal, my own exhausted, terrified face staring back. The tip jar slid from the glass and clattered onto the counter, completely empty. I stood frozen, my chest heaving, until I noticed something lying where the jar had been. A single brass coin, the same one as before. This time I didn't dare touch it. I backed away from the counter, leaving the coin where it lay. But as I retreated, the receipt printer screeched again, spitting out a new strip of paper. The words burned into my mind. The coin is now part of the rules. My stomach dropped. I picked up the slip, but the next line appeared before my eyes could focus. "You must carry it with you. Do not lose it. Do not spend it. Do not refuse it." The coin glimmered faintly under the buzzing lights, like it had been waiting all along. My hands shook as I scooped it up. The metal bit into my skin with unnatural cold, sinking deeper than temperature should. As soon as it touched my palm, the lights flickered violently. A deep groan echoed through the store, like the building itself was waking. The glass doors rattled as if something wanted in. The printer came alive again, each word striking me like a hammer. "It comes at 3. Pay the toll, or it will take your body." My blood froze. Pay the toll? With what? The clock on the wall ticked, louder and louder, each second drilling into my ears. 3 o'clock was only minutes away. I gripped the coin so hard it left an imprint in my palm. That's when I heard it. Heavy, dragging footsteps outside, scraping along the pavement. They circled the building once, twice, before stopping right in front of the door. The bell jingled, but the door never opened. Instead, a hand pressed against the glass. Not human. The skin was gray, too long, and stretched tight across bone. Its fingers curled, waiting. The printer shrieked again, placed the coin in its palm. "Do not speak. Do not look up. My throat clenched. Every instinct screamed not to go closer, but I was bound to the rules. I crept to the door, my shoes squeaking on the tile. The hand waited, twitching impatiently. I held the coin out and laid it onto its palm. Instantly, the hand recoiled into the night. The bell rang again, and the door opened a crack. A rush of cold air swept in, carrying the stench of damp earth. I staggered back, heart hammering, as something heavy thudded onto the floor. It was a burlap sack, stained and wet. I stared, unwilling to touch it, but the printer screamed, "Open it." I knelt slowly, every part of me begging not to. Inside were more coins. Dozens, maybe hundreds, all glinting faintly in the fluorescent light. My stomach churned. They weren't brass anymore. They were tarnished silver, each etched with faint, twisting faces. The printer spat another order. Do not spend them. Do not hide them. Do not leave them behind. They belong to you now. My vision swam. This wasn't a job anymore. It was a curse. I slammed the sack shut and shoved it under the counter, but even then, the coins whispered. 1,000 faint voices curling into one, repeating the same word over and over. Play. 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 The whispers burrowed deep, clawing into my skull. I pressed my hands against my ears, but they only grew louder. The lights flickered again, and I thought I saw faces pressed against the windows. Every pane of glass shimmered with movement. Smiles too wide, eyes too dark, staring in from the void of night. They wanted me, but they couldn't come inside. Not yet. The clock struck 3. The whispers cut off instantly. Silence swallowed the store whole. I could hear only my ragged breathing, echoing in the emptiness. Then, from somewhere behind me, a new sound began. The rhythmic clinking of coins hitting tile, one after another, approaching slowly. I turned, but no one was there. The sack under the counter shifted on its own, bulging outward as if something inside was crawling free. The printer screeched again. Do not let the sack open. I shoved my weight onto the sack, pressing it down with trembling hands. Something inside writhed, pushing back with unnatural strength. The canvas strained, threads snapping one by one. The printer screamed again, paper pouring out so fast it nearly jammed. Do not lose the sack. Do not open it. Do not let them out. My arms burned as the bulge shifted violently beneath me. A coin slipped free from the torn seam, rolling across the tile with a metallic ring. I lunged to grab it, but when my fingers touched, it was burning hot. The face on it smiled at me. The windows rattled, and the figures outside pressed harder against the glass. Their mouths opened wide in unison, though no sound came. My chest tightened. They weren't watching the store, they were watching the sack. The printer shrieked again. If one escapes, you must swallow it before they take it. If you fail, you will join them. I stared at the coin in my hand, bile rising in my throat. The sack jerked violently, bursting open just enough for a handful of coins to spill out. They scattered, clinking, rolling under shelves and into corners. Each one whispered my name. The glass door cracked as a figure slammed against it. My breath came ragged, vision swimming, as the rules echoed in my mind. Swallow it or be taken. I lifted the coin to my lips. The metal burned, searing my tongue as I forced it down. The whispers cut short in my skull, replaced by silence. The figures outside froze, their eyes locked on me. One by one, they faded into the night, leaving only the broken silence of the gas station. The sack twitched once more, then lay still. My stomach turned as the coin settled deep inside me. The printer hummed one final time. You are the keeper now. The toll must be paid every night. I sank to the floor, clutching my gut, knowing I wasn't guarding the station anymore. I was guarding them.